Qinghai, the fourth largest province in China, is located in the center of the country on the northeastern part of the Tibetan Plateau. Despite the sparse population, this region has served as a battleground for numerous Chinese dynasties and Tibetan tribes, but it was relatively unscathed by the Chinese Civil War and swore allegiance to the People's Republic of China in 1950. The Kunlun Mountains, which rise over 7,000 meters, form the border between the northern edge of the Tibetan Plateau and the Gobi Desert. 12 of the best mountain runners in the world have traveled to Mount Yuzhu, one of the range's highest peaks, to compete in the X-Trail fastest known time, otherwise known as the FKT. The course tops out at about 6,200 meters above sea level, making it the highest trail race on Earth. The race will start from an altitude of 5,050 meters. From there they'll ascend over rock, scree and ice to CP1, checkpoint 1. At CP1, the athletes change into boots and crampons for the final 600 meters to the summit, which is at 6,178 meters. From the high point, they'll retrace their footsteps for 6 kilometers back to where they started. A 1,000 meter gain over 6 kilometers is tough, but it's the lack of oxygen, less than 50% of sea level concentrations, that makes this event extreme and unique. The first FKT at Mount Yuzhu took place in 2016 and featured 5 of the world's top female runners. Runner ski mountaineer Stevie Kramer from Crested Butte, Colorado won the inaugural event and picked up a check with an impressive number of zeros. But this year, the race will be taking place a month earlier in the season, meaning the weather will be colder and less predictable for the 2017 field of racers. One of this year's competitors is ultra-runner Jason Slav, a record-breaking 100-mile runner who shared victory with Kilian Jornet in the Hard Rock 100 last year.
I do a lot of races around the world, try to travel as much as I can. I've always been a guy that likes to do things different. You know, everything from having a mullet to living in a cabin at 8,000 feet in Colorado. I think life is too short to live slowly or to not see what you can see and push yourself. To say that I'm here in China, I would think that it was impossible when I was in high school or growing up in the suburbs to be able to be out here and actually doing a race, but now I get to do it with some of the best athletes in the world.
Zhorenzha is the only male competitor who comes from this part of the world, born and bred in Qinghai. He says he started running at school and loved it. When he went to university, he got more opportunities to race and travel during the weekends and holidays. Unlike the other athletes, he was born on this plateau and he feels that has to be an advantage. I've spent 4 years at university on the low plains, so I came here a week early to reacclimatise. And his training so far has been going well. Zhorenzha is full of confidence. Ultra running's roots come from marathon running. Runners wanted to go further, higher, and more remote. They wanted different terrain. They wanted different cultures. Most of the pros have a busy schedule. Many of this year's FKT runners have flown straight from La Palma, where they've been competing in the punishing 74-kilometer Transvolcania. Lithuania's Gediminas Grinius is one of them.
I'm Gediminas Grinius and I came here from Lithuania, and I'm more into the long distance running.
A relatively new member of the ultra running world, Gediminas made a name for himself when he finished 5th in the 166-kilometer UTMB, the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc.
I was invited to this unique project, and I just was tempted by that and obsessed, and I just almost instantly say yes. It's something different, it's something out of my comfort zone. It's a high altitude, and basically I came from a sea level, so it's totally something what I'm not used to do, and this is what attracts me.
Amanda Basham has worked her way up in terms of distance.
I started as a sprinter, so I was on the track and the road doing a lot of really short, fast stuff. And now I do anything from 50K to 100 miles.
Although she's still relatively new to running, Amanda has an impressive number of wins to her name: the 2017 Ultra Race of Champions in Virginia and the Black Canyon 60 kilometer.
As I started getting into the adult world, I just started running longer and longer. And once I got on the trails, I instantly became obsessed and started exploring more mountains, and that's what's kind of gotten me to where I am in my running career.
Hi, I'm Anna Frost. I'm from New Zealand, but I spend a lot of my time based in Colorado, purely just to go running in the mountains.
Anna Frost is another athlete with a long list of honours. Twice she's won the Hard Rock 100, and she broke the Transvolcania record in 2012 when she clocked 8 hours 11 minutes. After a break in 2013, she came back physically and psychologically stronger.
I've been active my entire life. My parents were really active, and we would go out camping and hiking and fishing. And then I started doing triathlon and all sorts of different sports that were just there because I could and I wanted to get out of class. Then it was in 2004 that I started focusing mainly on running. I had gone out to Italy for the World Mountain Running Championships, uphill only, and I fell in love with the mountains, with the racing, with the scene, with the idea that I could travel, which is one of my major passions, and run at the same time.
My name is Meredith Edwards. I'm from Jackson, Wyoming. I started running at a really young age. I suffered from post-traumatic stress syndrome for about 12 years, and running was my outlet. I did it not knowing that I was actually like calming myself or making myself feel safe. I'd go for a run and I'd feel better about myself, and I'd maybe start to process things that I couldn't do any other way. Running is actually like this really powerful tool. It's beyond racing for me. It's just who I am, and it makes me who I am, and I like that. So coming here to run a really big peak at altitude, and then there's that technical element of, we're gonna be running on ice, we're gonna be roped up. It's very unique, and there's nothing really quite like it. And so I think it's a little nerve-wracking. I've never really raced anything like that. I have experience, doing that like mountaineering, but not where it's like, oh, now it's for time and there's people around you like you're racing against, you're competing, and it's a bit odd because I don't think you can compete with them. I think it's, like you got to go at your own pace and figure it out. So it's a challenge mentally, I think, more than anything.
I'm Adam Chase. I'm here from Boulder, Colorado. I've done some adventure races where there was a lot of running and mountaineering. Certainly nothing like this where you're going at an altitude like this.
Adam Chase is well known in the ultra running community. He's competed in over 100 races from marathon upwards and has notched up 25 impressive wins.
I think the X-Trail FKT is really unique in the ultra mountain community and something that a lot of people want to do because of the elevation. Everyone's read about climbing a high mountain, but they haven't done it. And I think as a runner, you might not have the mountaineering skills, so this is an opportunity to kind of get that real taste.
I used to live in Colorado, and I lived right by a 14er, and I would run up it several times a week. But going beyond that, it definitely changes. You can feel your heart rate spike constantly. Every 1,000 feet or so after that, it gets harder and harder. I can only imagine what it's like up at 19 to 20,000 feet. It's very intimidating.
My main goal of the race is just getting to the top and back safely. If I'm feeling like my body's not responding and I don't feel well, I'm not going to risk my life to get to the top. I'll turn back.
I heard about the FKT last year because Stevie Kramer first called me up and asked me about altitude tents and what she should do to train. So I helped her with kind of a strategy, and then she came back from it having won it and just had some great things to say about it.
Stevie Kramer's the 2013 and 2014 Skyrunner World Champion, and she's well aware that this is a unique test with unpredictable outcomes.
This race is very different from many of the other races I do. But this kind of race where it's at altitude, I didn't care about the competition as much as I cared about the altitude. And I didn't feel the altitude last year at 20,000 feet. I felt fine. I got down, I had a headache, but I was fine. Everyone says it can change from day to day to year. So just because I was fine last year doesn't mean I was going to be fine this year.
The unique thing I believe for all the athletes here is we're not used to this kind of altitude extreme. And so from the get-go, our hearts are going to be thumping. The anaerobic side of this is extreme and crazy. And most of us, I think all of us, are used to racing longer distances. Everybody's going to have to endure a level of pain and a discomfort that we're just not used to.
Overnight, the barometric pressure dropped dramatically, creating violent winds that swept across the mountain range. A number of the marshals, some of whom have summited Everest, struggled to make it to CP1, where they recorded winds coming in at 100 kilometers per hour. Due to the threat posed by Mother Nature, race directors have delayed the race for fear of the athletes' safety.
We're here at the start line, base camp at 5,000 meters, and it's really windy. So we're kind of just anxiously, impatiently, nervously waiting here. If we could make it up to checkpoint 1, I want to go. I want to get out there and push hard and run and make something happen. If we get to the summit, that's the best.
Last night we had an idea there could be wind this morning, so we didn't all wake up knowing 100% that we were going to go to the peak. Who knows if we're even going to step foot on this mountain.
With marshals in place, athletes ready to go and the wind howling, the race directors have a difficult decision to make. Is it safe to race or not? Back at base camp, the staff and athletes come to a consensus that racing to the summit at 6,200 meters will not happen in the current conditions. As the wind is still gusting up to 100 kilometers an hour, they have no choice but to alter the course. Due to the risk of frostbite, the athletes will no longer stop to change into boots and crampons at checkpoint 1. Instead, a second checkpoint will be positioned 200 meters out from CP1. That will be the new turnaround point for the racers. Despite the changes, it's not going to be easy to reach CP2 at 5,800 meters, with oxygen levels below 50% of normal and force 10 winds. Anxiety levels are high as most of the runners have never been to this altitude and none of them have raced at this height before.
I think when you're born, you are born with the competitive blood.
I believe for all the athletes here is we're not used to this kind of altitude extreme. From the get-go, our hearts are going to be thumping.
The only athlete with the confidence to push hard from the start, and maybe the only athlete physically able to push, is Yuzhu, a man born and bred on this plateau, and it shows. Ludovic Pomeray leads the somewhat half-hearted chase. He came in second place in the Transvolcania just days before the FKT, and he tries to keep the lead man in his sights as they approach the grueling 1,000-meter climb.
It's the first time at high altitude. Usually I never go higher than 3,000 maybe on race. I learn a lot on ultra running. You learn that even if you are tired, your body could do more.
A climber at this altitude would limit their daily ascent to something like 500 meters after weeks of acclimatization. These runners will be gaining over 1,000 meters in under an hour. The low oxygen levels will raise the heart rate and breathing rates. It will affect thinking and coordination, and it could lead to headaches, dizziness and nausea. No one knows what's coming, as everyone is affected differently. And it hasn't affected Yuzhu at all. He leads as they reach CP2. Jason Slav passes Ludovic as they near CP1. To win this, he'll have to throw caution to the wind on the way down, and his body language suggests that's not going to happen. Pomeray finds the ice of Tibet a little more of a test than the volcanoes of La Palma. Not far behind the leading men, Stevie Kramer pushes herself the last few hundred metres up to CP2. Last year's winner again shows she has the flair for high altitude performance. Men like Gediminas are going to have to chase hard on the way down if they want to beat her.
Seeing that mountain, it looks like a bit scary because it's all icy. It's like easy to go up to the mountain, but it's so difficult to go down, at least for me. You know, I don't know about the other guys, but it's at least what scares me.
The front runners have to exercise some caution on the descent. It's steep, it's icy, and it's unforgiving.
Go, good job.
And there's no doubt the lack of oxygen will be affecting the legs just as much as the heart and lungs. The effects of high altitude on humans are considerable. For every 300 meters that a person ascends in elevation, a 3% loss in oxygen occurs.
You're terrible.
And if Anna Frost feels terrible, you know they're all suffering.
Most of the time it is just a big mental game, and you just tell yourself, I've felt worse, I've gotten through it, just keep moving, it doesn't matter how fast, and you'll get there eventually.
Swiss ultra runner Andrea Husser and Chinese runner Zhang Fuzhou find themselves in a close battle for 7th and 8th position as they near CP2. Meredith Edwards isn't far behind Andrea Husser and Zhang Fuzhou, and she'll have to take her chances on the downhill and trust her reflexes to keep her upright. The last few runners come into CP2 fatigued, feeling the brutal effects of the change in altitude.
In a race, you're really testing everything that you've done and all those years that you've put in of training and preparation and sacrifice. When it gets to the point where you're really hurting, you have to say, well, I chose to do this. This is my choice, and I'm privileged that I can do this.
Zhang pushes hard on the descent and is slowly closing in on Andrea Husser. Gediminas has passed Stevie Kramer and continues down the mountain in 4th place. Jason Slav, in turn, is doing what he can to catch Jar. The slightest uphill forces them all to walk, and this is something that none of these athletes are accustomed to. Zhang is now just meters behind Andrea Husser, looking for the right time to make her final push, but Stevie Kramer has proved too good for the rest of the women.
I think this race is like no other. Starting at 15,000 feet, running to 20,000 feet. You don't do that every day. It's not a race, it's an adventure.
And the spectacular prayer flags add to the experience. Whether they choose to repeat it or not, this is something they'll talk about for a long time. Everyone picks up the pace as they descend, but it's the local man, Jar, who's the only man who's been able to run on light legs. He takes the win in 62 minutes, 10 minutes clear of Slav.
That was amazing. That was so tough. That was gut-wrenching from the 10 seconds into the finish.
Just 2 minutes behind Jason is Ludovic. Both athletes competed in the Transvolcania just days before the FKT.
I tried to reach him in downhill, but he was too far. But it's good race, funny race. Thanks, Jason.
I'm most proud to run fast down because the European Ludo is very, very fast down, and Americans are wimps on the downhill.
Okay,
So that was the best thing about the whole day. Is I
you
could
did
run
a good
fast.
down. You did a good down here.
Thank you, Ludo. Everybody was in the pain cave, man.
Except maybe Stevie.
Stevie looked good.
It was hard. It was a constant push the whole way. You always had someone right in front of you and always had someone right behind you, so you wanted to keep pushing as hard as you could because you knew as soon as the downhill started, it would have been easy.
Daniel Jung finishes only minutes behind the first woman, Stevie Kramer, in 6th position. Andrea Husser and Zhang Futso have been in a battle from start to finish, and that final sprint leaves them both exhausted and with dangerously low levels of oxygen saturation. Both are in need of medical attention. The medics provide Zhang with oxygen to bring her heart rate under control.
Crazy. She's very strong. I fall down, she's down here, and I open my jacket and then she can't catch me.
After a few minutes on oxygen, Zhang Futso's pulse rate returns to normal. Meredith Edwards, who trains in the Teton Mountains, crosses the line in 9th place.
Okay. Wow. That was fun. And really, really hard all at the same time. I had like this epic, like almost slip and fall, and I caught it and like kept going down on the ice. I was like, yeah.
Adam Chase can't add to his list of wins, but he's happy.
Today was maybe 200 feet higher than I'd ever been, so nice to break some records and do something new and different.
Anna Frost is happy to be in one piece.
That's a whole different type of pain. Right when you're done with stuff, you think, I don't want to do one of those for a long time. And then an hour from now, I'll be signing up for the next.
It was really hard because I think I went out maybe too fast. I had to remind myself to just go my own pace and don't only worry about myself and it will all come, you know. It was good, really, really good, so I'm happy.
Started kind of crazy fast. Jar, he just, like exploded, and everybody at first followed him, and after that it was too late. Our heart rate, our pace was too high, so basically he just has his own race. It still is an accomplishment. I've never raced so high in such a high altitude, so for me it's like really different experience, and pretty happy with the result, and I'm pretty happy with our guys because I see that they are like really enjoy it.
To be able to be out here and actually doing a race with some of the best athletes in the world from across the world, that's something I'll never forget.
Even though the push to the summit wasn't possible due to the Force 10 winds, this was a unique test of mind and body, and an experience that will strengthen the bond that the athletes have with each other and the mountains.